Welcome to Cats and Rats Podcast, covering your Florida Panthers.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the new episode of the Cats and Rats Podcast. This is episode number 14. So I was looking up former Florida Panther jersey numbers. Stu Barnes, he was one of them. The Wizard, Ray Whitney. Sometimes Cody's a little hard on him. I don't think Cody remembers in retrospect how good he was for our organization.
I wasn't born when he was in our organization.
Well,
so that
he was putting up big
sense.
numbers. He was an all-star, Cody, an all-star on a team devoid of offensive talent outside of Viktor Kozlov and obviously the Russian rocket Pavel Bure. So number 14s. But guys, do you know another number 14 for the Florida Panthers that might have a connection with our next series upcoming here? Any
Number
guesses?
14?
Uh-huh.
Nick, you got any? Because not many guys.
It's not ringing a bell.
Give me a second. I gotta check.
Fleischman, no.
I mean, he played in Colorado to us, right?
Yep. And Washington.
14?
Damn. Dvorak wore 14, right?
There we go. Radek Dvorak,
Oh.
former member of the CPR line with Gregory Campbell, who's still at the Panthers organization, Ville Peltonen. That was one of our best third lines going. Nowadays, they'd probably be lucky to be our fourth line, but we had to depend on them as our third line. Former New York Ranger and former two-time Florida Panther. So it'll be interesting to see what Radek Dvorak's emotions are on this series, as one of his former two clubs will be going to the 2024 Stanley Cup final. And we brought him back, right? But he had some good years there in New York, if I'm not mistaken. So just wanted to write that down, the notes off the top here, fellas. But before we start on the good news and moving on to play the New York Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final, the Panthers returning to the Eastern Conference Final in back-to-back years, we should close out this Boston series, guys. Panthers go to TD Garden once again on road ice. Close out the Boston Bruins, this time in 6 games, unlike last year in 7 games in the underdog role. Any numbers to share? Any feelings, emotions on that? I'm just going to say off the top, and everyone in our community knows that's on Twitter X and our post-game Spaces show. I was pretty fired up. Cody knows that. During the game, I was pretty fired up. I thought that was one of our worst efforts of these playoffs and in recent memory, but we still find a way to get the job done. And a lot of fans say to me, Kirby, that's what good and great teams do. They find a way to get the job done. I don't know how exactly they did it. I'm still thinking about it days later. But anyways, we're moving on, and we're going to talk about the Rangers later on in this podcast episode. We better bring a better effort than we did in Game 6 against Boston. You can even go back to Game 5 and other parts of that series. But again, how are you guys feeling coming off the victory over the Boston Bruins in 6 games? Cody, Nick, again here with my co-host.
Bewildered, confused. Just that game was so bad, bro. Oh my lord. Couldn't get
we're not gonna. We go back and watch film a lot of time, Cody. I don't think we're gonna go back and watch a lot of film on that one in the summer. Paul Maurice has to come out and just say, "Throw the tapes away. We got to be better. Move on." He's gonna have to say that at some point.
The first pair before the third period. Oh, woof.
Matthew Tkachuk disappearing act continued for the whole Boston round. I know he had the one game with 3 assists. That second line, pretty invisible at times. We weren't getting a ton of depth scoring as that series is going on. You look at someone like Anton Lundell. This guy, he has stepped up repeatedly in playoffs for us. We needed everything that he had to kind of get through that series. And then you get Gustav Forsling, who has been a steady force back there on the blue line for the Panthers this year. He finds a way to somehow get that game-winning goal. We'll take it. And that's one that Jeremy Swayman's going to be haunted by all summer long, as he was one of the spotlight players in that entire series.
That goal just shows how much Jeremy Swayman was carrying Boston this series. It was ridiculous because
if he did that all series long, they wouldn't have had a chance.
Oh, this was over in 5. But once again, I gave props to him on the post-game Spaces because his margins were razor thin. Because here's the thing, he gave up that was the only bad goal he gave up this series. The only one.
That I can think of. Was there any on home ice?
Not that
there was that one at the end of the period. Wasn't that a Forsling goal there at the end of the period?
Yeah, but he was screened by his own guy.
Yeah, it's not just bad situational.
Yeah, but that one was short side below the face-off circle from a bad angle. Like it was most fans would want Bobrovsky to have that one back if that was him. So
We would have been talking about that all summer if the roles were reversed. And we're going to game 7 and say we lose game 7 in whatever form or fashion, right? So
yeah,
Nick, jump in on your feelings here.
Yeah,
I know you were at game 5.
I was at game 5, and
the
we
reason
had
why
an
we
awesome-
lost too.
Oh, okay. Had a great time at a watch party in game 6. Couple members from the community were able to join me. We had a great time. It was awesome. You know, kind of picking back off of what you guys said, you know, I didn't like game 6 at all. Again, you know, when we talk about like certain things, like we talk about the first pairing, right? Their spacing was terrible, and you know, you think allowing a final minute in the goal, find a goal in the final minute of the period in game 6, and then first shift for the first pair in the second period of game 6, Pasternak's on a breakaway, right? So we kind of saw some things continue in our game that I didn't really like.
Repeatable errors. things that we weren't
Exactly. There
fixing.
were some lineup changes that, you know, didn't cost us, I guess, but you know, they didn't really provide the spark that I think Maurice was looking for. Again, we'll see how the lineup is moving forward. But overall, I agree with what you said, Kirby. That's not a game they're going to look at and be like, okay, what did we do here? And you know, that was kind of a much fest, you know, like that was not a good game. I don't think either team necessarily loved their game. Panthers were fortunate to come away with a win, and hey, credit to Gustav Forsling. I didn't like his first 40 minutes, and I didn't really like our first 40 minutes. But you know, that when it came time to show up, Alexander Barkov with a massive block shot, and then he's out there taking the face off. That's probably the best news I saw during that time. And then obviously Forsling following up the rebound. But really, the guys in this game and throughout the series, Barkov and Lundell were fantastic. And Sergei Bobrovsky kept us in this game. Otherwise, we'd be talking about game 7
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
faced like what 2-3 breakaways.
Yeah, he was outstanding in game 6 and in game 5.
But first off, while we have it, shout out to Alexander Barkov, 2-time Selke Award winner now.
Thank you, Cody, for mentioning. I didn't have that in my notes.
Good is look, he's on pace for the Hockey Hall of Fame if he keeps winning these Selkies now. Like
yeah, and I sent out a tweet every about 5-6 years. The guy that wins the Selke trophy is a Stanley Cup final winner, champion. So again, this year or next year, I think Barkov has another great shot at winning the Selke next year. So this is very good news. If you're a Florida Panther fan and you're looking at those Selke winners, you go back in time to Rod Brindamore, Bergeron, Jonathan Taves,
Ryan O'Reilly,
Kopitar's in there. But yeah, if you go back and look at the same year that they won, there's a collection of them. There's 4 or 5 of them that have won the Selke and the Stanley Cup in the same year. And we know Barkov's going to be up for this award perennially.
Yeah, as they say, Barkov's the new Bergeron. Even though I hate that comparison, but I just like
because you're saying it's a little bit of a slight on Barkov for the offensive numbers.
It's just lazy. Like I think Kopitar and Barkov are a little bit more comparable, but I think Barkov's comp is Pavel Datsyuk in terms of the hands, the skill, the defensive ability, the quiet play. And
I think Boston Bruins fans that know us quite well at this point, which is surprising, and then say LA Kings fans, they don't look at that as Barkov a comparison to Datsyuk. They're like, where does he stack up with Kopitar and Bergeron? And Boston fans I've seen online, they're like, Bergeron is always going to be the model of consistency. He's always going to be Mr. Selke. I don't know how you can just say that when Alexander Barkov is like in the prime of his career right now, and the story is only like half written. So again, I think just fans from that Boston market not giving us respect. And we're going to talk about another big market here in a second, Cody, but not a lot of respect given our way.
But I think we have to.
But it does surprise me.
But I think we got to go to the review of our top 5 and X factors for this series. And boy, did I do trash. I mean,
yeah, if you want to get into that, share your list.
I could argue I went 0 for 5 here because as you listeners know, we do a top 5 spotlight players before every series plus an X factor, and we kind of have to give grades on it. So At my number 5 spot, I had Charlie McAvoy. He didn't
That's an X there, Nick.
I would
Okay.
definitely say so. I mean,
he didn't have a shot on goal till game 5. That's like he was 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 shots on goal through 4 games.
2 playoffs now. Charlie McAvoy, really checkered history with the Florida Panthers. You could say he brought it in a couple games last year in the 2023 playoffs against the Panthers where he was really elite, but then there was games where he was awful too in that series. And this series, underwhelming on the ice for goals against, continued kind of his porous play that he had in the Toronto Maple Leafs series, the series prior.
Number 4, I had Sam Reinhart. Wrong. Again, he only had like, 1 goal? And I think he had 4 assists. Wait, actually, no, I could get
I don't know.
Reinhart.
He had points, Cody. I'm going to get into Reinhart.
He had 4 assists.
I thought he was one of our, when you compare him to other guys who we thought
on both teams. I'm giving Cody a check mark there.
Yeah, I would get, especially at 4, like it's not too highly ranked. So I would definitely say that's
so 1 for 5, sweet. Because number 3, I had David Pastrnak.
No, a number 3.
And number 2 and 1, the 2 biggest ghosts of the series for Florida. You could probably make an argument these 2 were the worst players this series.
Yeah.
Number 2, Matthew Tkachuk. Number 1, Carter Verhaeghe.
Yeah, Cody won the last round versus me when Nick was away for the Tampa Bay series. I don't think Cody's winning this one here, Nick.
And who did you have as your honorable mentions, Cody?
Alexander Barkov and both goalies.
And I said you're only allowed 2, but he picked both. It's all right. That's pretty.
I would say the honorable mention should have probably been the top 5, but
but I should get a point from my Bruins X Factor. I had Morgan Geekie.
Nick, thoughts there?
I lost big time there on my X Factors.
No, we'll get to yours in a second, but point there on Cody's X Factor, and then on Florida, Cody?
Etu Luosterainen.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I said it was good, but, like on that line with Lundell and Rodriguez, I thought he was the 3rd guy.
Maybe half marks for Cody's X Factor. The only thing holding Cody up is his honorable mention, but we're not really grading that.
Right.
We're grading more of the X Factor in the top 5.
Yep. So about 3.5 points.
Yeah.
For your boy. But Nick.
That'd be generous. Okay, Nick.
So kind of had a similar list to Cody. I would say I probably went
at number 5.
Number 5, I had Brandon Montour, who I don't think was bad this series, but I thought there were a lot better players in this series, obviously.
I'm jumping in on that. If you're picking a defenseman, how many more defensemen on both sides of the ice were better than him?
I'm not gonna lie. I don't think any defenseman would.
I don't. Yeah, that's what I don't.
I have one, and it's Brandon Carlo. Like maybe
Carlo, really, maybe early in the series. But I'd give Nick a point there. You got to look. He picked a defenseman. Grade him against the position of the whole series.
But here's the thing: you're saying top 5. There was no defenseman.
I don't think he was top 5 in this series. I think.
So you guys don't even have a defenseman close then.
No, really, no.
I mean, in my opinion, if it were going to be anybody, like early in the series, it looked like maybe like Mason Lowry could have. That's not.
But he fell off. He fell off
big time. So
he had horrible.
I mean, he fell off the cliff.
Yeah. So
I could say Forsley would be in the discussion and Montour, but like again, I don't know. I'm not.
There wouldn't be any Boston defenseman in this conversation.
No. And I don't think any other Florida Panther that.
How about half point? We'll
go
compromise
there.
Half point.
Number 4, complete miss. He was terrible in my opinion this series, and like you said, Carter Verhaeghe thought
that's shocking that we can't.
Kirby said prior to Game 5 that he needed it to be a Tkachuk Verhaeghe game. It was absolutely not that, and they did not do it in Game 6 either.
I didn't curse them.
No, Verhaeghe created both goals, by the way. So he was horrible this series.
Again, it's kind of like
this isn't a Carter Verhaeghe series, though. Not
he's
even
not top 5. And again, you take a look. I think it was your X Factor, Cody Morgan Geekie, who beat him to the slot in Game 5 and made it 1-0 Bruins. And Verhaeghe wasn't really in great position. He wasn't moving his feet there. So stuff like that, where he's usually a lot better at. I would go with a miss on my part, but if you want to give me a half point, I'll take it.
I'm not giving you half. He only got 1 game.
Number 3, David Pastrnak, same position Cody had him in.
Yikes.
He was pretty non-existent. this whole series. Good in game 1, and then he scored the goal in game 4. But outside of that,
got beat up by Matthew
Yep.
Tkachuk. Didn't do anything on the power play. Was on his butt.
And it was a lot of
hits.
the Bruins depth guys that really stepped up. It wasn't Pastrnak, especially when Marchand was out of the lineup. So for me, that's a complete miss. Number 2, and really should be number 1, Alexander Barkov.
All right, there's the first full
point. That's the first full point. This guy was the best player in the series. Unbelievable. We're talking about it on one of the post-game spaces, Kirby, about how much he has elevated his game this playoffs, and it's really been great to see because without Alexander Barkov, I don't know where we would be. And number 1, Matthew Tkachuk.
Big fat Red X.
Yeah, he was not good. He needs to be a lot better moving forward. We'll talk about that moving forward, but that's my top 5. And my honorable mentions, I know we're not grading them.
Yep.
Jeremy Swayman and Sam Reinhart, who probably could be top 5, but we're not.
We missed on those honorable mentions.
I think you can make an argument that Swayman could be 1. I think you can make the argument.
Here's the thing I'll say.
And a series loss.
A lot of people were talking about, how good Jeremy Swayman was. We got goalied. I think he was very good. Don't get me wrong.
I don't think we got goalied.
But
I'm not the goalie thing either. I'm not there.
I give Swayman a lot of credit, right? But
I've seen Andre Vasilevsky goalie us. I've seen other goalies goalie.
Well, I was going to say this. Goalie. I don't think what Jeremy Swayman did this year was anything really better than what Ottinger did to Calgary a couple years back when they lost in that.
What Ottinger did to Calgary was on another level.
Yes, exactly. Another level. That's another. I don't think that was really close to this. I don't think Swayman was.
Look at the goals expected. I don't know. Saves
expected, whatever. Again, and Swayman played excellent, right? Unbelievable, right? But the whole thing, he's definitely top 5, but I think the Bruins number 1 didn't show up in front of him, and number 2. I think some of the games we didn't really test them as much as we could have or should have.
Correct.
But who are your X factors for this series, Nick?
0 for 2, Trent Frederick and Kevin Stenlund. That was, it was not good. I thought this could be a Trent Frederick series, it would be.
Nick was very worried about that. He's like, how are we going to match up with Trent Frederick?
We had
to worry about how matching up with him when he was taking cheap shots in the scrums. That's one of the
and I thought Kevin Stenlund, I thought he was good, but not an X factor, I don't think.
I don't even know if I'd say he's good. And I'm a big Kevin Stenlund stan.
No, he was good at the PK.
Yeah,
everything else, no.
He started the series as a third line center, and I didn't know what it was going to go on. So,
Patrick, I couldn't even tell you one thing he did this series.
Yeah, so 0 for 2 on that.
So what was his grade there? Is it above yours, Cody?
No, I think I got him 1 point. I think he has 1 point. That was the.
I don't know how Cody's list could be better than Nick's. Really?
Yeah.
Nick?
I think you gave me a half a point for Montour.
Yeah, 1.5. So 1.5. My X factor saved me, Kirby.
What? Your X factor? Oh, so you're giving full grades on the X factors. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm in the discussion on this one then. I'll go through mine quick because it's repeating a lot of the same stuff that you guys said. Honorable mention, it would have gave me a lot of points. I had Alexander Barkov, 2nd straight series. I've left him out of my top 5. Not doing that again. And Jeremy Swayman. Those were my 2. Cody had 3 honorable mentions. I had 2. I hit those out of the park. They should be on my list. That cost me right there. Number 5. I'm curious about you guys on this one. I don't think either one of you guys had this guy on your list. And you guys were kind of critical of it. Sergei Bobrovsky, number 5 for me.
I think he gets a point there.
I think for what he did the last 2 games of the season.
I mean, he wasn't tested games 2 through 4.
Nick got on him early on.
I got on him a little bit earlier in the series, but the last 2 games, you can make an argument he was our best player.
Nick even said this to me on the post game. Kirby, I don't know how you can have Bobrovsky in your top 5. He's not going to make a factor in this series after the first couple games. I'm like, you got to give it a chance. What if he gets a shutout? And Cody pushed back on me too. What if he gets an 18 save shutout? I'm like, I knew Boston wasn't going to throw a lot of pucks on him, but the quality of shots.
They had a game with 18 shots too.
But the way the whole series was going, it did not look like, we were going to need Bobrovsky to come up big, and we needed him to, and he did. So,
okay.
That's great.
1 point.
With you guys, horrible here, but how can you not leave him off the list, David Pastrnak? Number 4. I didn't have him higher.
I think coming into the series, he's one of the best players in the world. Obviously,
He scored that Game 7 overtime goal. It's like, does
you
this
know,
get him going?
And there was a thought like when Montgomery made those post-game press conference when he made the comments like Pasta needs to step up and then scores the Game 7 overtime winner. Like,
that's when
that gets him going. You know,
that's when we were recording the podcast, and that's
exactly
like,
so
in your memory. You know,
yeah, it's like, well,
prisoner of the moment.
What if he gets going? We already know he's extremely talented, but Panthers did a very good job with him.
Yeah, but he also carried the Bruins offense. Like, he had like 100 and some points. No one in his team had above 70. How the heck could you leave him off? Like, the Panthers just did an amazing job neutralizing him. Really gave him no room this series. Like, he had the one power play goal, but that was just a very good play by Boston. But I mean, there was just no way you can have a Boston top 5 and not have David Pastrnak on it.
Yeah.
Number 3, just like you guys all said, Carter Verhaeghe. I was trying to put him higher, and I remember talking to Cody like, is 3 too low? Well, no, it's not. Shouldn't be on the list.
Too high.
Shouldn't even be in the top 5.
I think I could make a top 10. He's not in it.
Now, this is the only time over a long duration span, other than the President's Trophy year, where he did call out Anthony Duclair or Carter Verhaeghe to be benched in the playoffs, so they continue to play like they did in the regular season. Carter Verhaeghe went on for a tear that has never been seen in Panthers history again, and Anthony Duclair was the one that was benched in those playoffs during the President's Trophy.
Shout out Maxime Mammon.
Yeah, Maxime Mammon, we needed him for everything there, even though we came up short in that sweep. But again, Carter Verhaeghe, I've never been as down on him after this round as I was back in the President's Trophy regular season when he was kind of hot and cold. Well, this is the time here where hopefully he's able to step up next round. And I'm not going to lose faith in the guy. This guy is Mr. Clutch and everything like that. So, but I'm interested to see what his round will look like in the Eastern Conference Final. Number 2, his line mate, Matthew Tkachuk. I think I had him number 1 in the Tampa series. That looked a lot better here, nowhere close to seeing where.
So we're still at 1 point here.
Yep. And number 1, I'd like to get some type of half a point or something here. Sam Reinhart. You guys are a little hard on his evaluation there.
I got a half a point for him, so you get a half a point for him too.
Yeah, I understand not the full point, but he's in the top 5 discussion. Like he along with
for
Barkov.
sure, yeah. Because that top line was our best line this series.
Now, you can't give me full marks for that because he didn't go off on the power play. He didn't come up in like huge moments throughout the series. But there was a game where he had, was it like 13, 14, 15 shot attempts?
Something like that.
He had that chance to tie it late there on the Montour pass. So, like, again, he didn't come through in those certain moments, but he was around the play.
Yeah.
And tight play, he took a puck to the face there and bounced back from that. The following game had a bunch of stitches there, so he had to leave and then come back.
Also took a big hit from Charlie McAvoy in game 4.
Just didn't care.
Yep.
And then
your X factors here are gonna
X factors. This is what should maybe pull me ahead of Cody here if he's grading himself on those. My X factors for the Boston Bruins, Jake DeBrusk, and for the Panthers, Brandon Montour.
Yeah, I will. DeBrusk
1.5 points.
1.5. What do you say?
Who do you give in the point to? Because I would probably give the full point to DeBrusk and
the half to Montour.
Like I know,
man, you guys are hard on Montour.
I know there's been some discussion about the power play, right? And Brandon Montour. The fact of the matter is there was still 6 or 7 goals on the power play. You know,
we had the better power play.
Yeah, we did. And, you know, we had a lot more chances too.
I will say Brandon Montour needs to maybe produce a little bit more on the power play if you're looking at from an individual standpoint. But if you look at him as a defenseman, really solid defensively. We win the special teams battle. So again, it's not like he failed at what he's asked to do.
I don't look at this game like, again, I think every defenseman in the series made a mistake here and there, right?
Yep.
Like there wasn't.
He made the one.
Yeah,
that one.
I don't. You think you look at Brandon Montour, like this is a bad series for him. I think he was a good series, and you know.
And remember how many points he had early on in the series.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's a full point.
No, but the thing, why I don't think it's a full point is he's like one of like the 3 correct answers for like the X factor, but he's not the number 1 answer. Like,
was there a consistent X factor for game in, game out of this series? Because you'd be hard pressed to find one.
Probably Lundell or Erod. Even
Lundell and Erod.
Yeah.
I think Lundell's number 1 in terms of X factor. Okay. That's why I feel half a point, but you still win with the half a point. So really,
but it's hard if we're trying to hit on the 1 X factor on each team, right?
That's what we're trying to do. What do you mean?
We're trying, but if the guy's 2 or 3, like okay, but half a point.
Yeah, half a point, but you still win. So Kirby gets this round.
Oh man, I'm not going to brag about this if you guys are giving this to me.
Listen, the way this series went, it just felt like every star player just canceled each other out.
Our picks kind of mirrored what the series was, which was kind of meh, you know, or underwhelming, subpar, you know.
The D for team won.
Yeah. Like we had deserved in the past. I know not everyone here is longtime Panther fans, but we have deserved a better fate in the past than the fate that we got in this series.
Devils, Islanders.
Devils, Islanders. You can't tell me otherwise. You know, like Riley Smith was leading the NHL in points, I believe, at one point up there at the top with superstars in the NHL.
I will never forgive Adam.
Our power play was so. I will never forget Adam Henry.
Our power play was dynamite in that Devils.
Our power play was killer.
And here's the thing: New Jersey's penalty kill that year
was
like
number
record setting. It was like record setting. I think it was like at 91% or something. It was like an NHL record at that time. And then we go 45% on the power play in the first round. So Brian
Campbell, Mike Weaver did work on that power play.
Man, what some names from the past there, guys. Before we move on to talk about CanesWear here a little bit in a second, our series predictions, we all had the same there.
I think we all were like Panthers in 5, but we wouldn't be surprised if it was 6.
Which there you go.
Like, maybe our most accurate thing we've said. You know,
shout out the team for not showing up in Game 5 and getting their predictions wrong. Appreciate it,
Thanks. I was feeling like real confident. I'm like, all right, I got this right, and then we go ahead and do that. So.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So yeah. But before we get into the next round here, I just want to let everyone know about our sponsor, CanesWear. Again, make sure to follow them on Instagram, also on the Twitter X platform. They've been at some of the watch parties as well. So if you see them or you see their table set up, just go over and say hi to them and say you're part of the Cats and Rats community and stuff like that. And they know Kirby, Nick, and Cody quite well. So just mention us and have a nice chat with them because they're really supporting this team right now. But I just want to let you know, are you geared up? CanesWear and Davie's is a place for all your Florida Panthers needs. They have the latest gear for your favorite NHL team. Jerseys, polos, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. CanesWear has you covered. Stop by their store in Davie or at PanthersWear.com. Again, that's PanthersWear, WEAR.com for all your Panthers gear. All right, now we're going to look ahead to the Eastern Conference Final here. Panthers got a few days off. They had a week off after the Tampa Bay series win. They won't have quite that much time, but they'll have a little bit of rest here to get everyone back. I know there was a couple players that had to leave the game in Boston, but Panthers reporter Jamison Olive, among many others, said the Panthers look to be healthy and ready to go for the Eastern Conference Final. So we'll have to see coming up to matchups. But before we do that, I also want to say our Spaces preview show on Twitter X platform will be on Monday night, probably 8 p.m. Eastern time as of this recording. We haven't really locked in the time, but probably 8 p.m. Eastern time. Again, we'll promote that on our links on Twitter and on Instagram. So make sure to follow there. We'll get into like kind of more of the lineups in depth on that and even a lot more of the numbers as well. But I'll just share a few numbers off the top here before we go to our keys to the series. The season series, the Panthers were 2-0-1. They outscored the Rangers 11-9 in those 3 contests. New York outshot Florida in 2 of those 3 matchups, which I found very interesting, gentlemen, because the Panthers have been very accustomed to outshooting teams all year long, playoffs, etc. Bobrovsky played in all 3 of those matchups. Shesterkin was in 2 of the 3. Jonathan Quick got the start in the other. And I know where Cody is going to kind of go off the top here with keys to the series, but special teams is a big one. I was looking into the numbers during our season series. Panthers went 2 for 8 on the power play versus the Rangers in those 3 matchups in the regular season. New York Rangers went 3 for 9 on the power play versus the Panthers in those 3 contests. So I'll just leave the numbers there for now, but Cody, I know where you're going with your first key to the series. Go ahead.
I mean, it's imperative here because the Rangers, a lot of their success comes off special teams. Because I'm not really going based off regular season. I'm going based off what I saw against Carolina. Where the Rangers killed Carolina at was their penalty kill is sneaky good. Because when you think Rangers, you think, oh, they're massive power play. No, their penalty kill, they scored 2 shorthanded goals that series, I believe. 2. and they were pretty big ones too. Truba had one, and I
remember
forgot
that one.
I forgot who had the other, but
Kreider in game
Kreider,
3.
yeah. Appreciate that, Nick. And their power play, I mean, looking at their power play, it feels like Tampa's old power play back when they were in when they were making cup finals here.
So many options. Who do you stop? You kind of know who option one or two are, just like vintage Tampa, Cody. But so many options to try to stop out there and contain.
Good Lord. You have your playmaking layer who also has a pretty good shot in Artemi Panarin on one side. Up top, you have one of the best defensemen in the NHL and a perennial Norris candidate for the next couple of years in Adam Fox, who can...
And you really like him.
Oh,
you're a big fan of his.
He's my favorite defenseman in the NHL.
Oh,
just an absolute. He can fire one from the blue line, and he can make another shot that's easy to deflect. And
I'm gonna add another thing to your list. I was talking to a Ranger fan in our post game spaces that came by after we beat the Boston Bruins, and me and him almost said it at the exact same time. He'll make you look silly. Power play 5v5. Yes. He'll just toe drag and go around you. And then that opens up even more. And with our aggressive penalty kill, I could see that happening on more than one occasion in this series, Cody.
Yes, their power play is the exact kryptonite of the Panthers penalty kill, which is perfect puck movement on this stick, no wasted movements, quick off their stick, so the pressure could not get to them. And that way, and when the pressure does, it spreads them out and everything's opened up.
And our fans say, why do they move the puck so well? Our power play doesn't move it that well. These guys have been together a long time, Cody.
I mean, especially Kreider, Panarin, Fox, and Zibanejad. Trocheck's the new guy. This is his second year in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to resistance of their power play, I mean, you have the Zibanejad one-timer on the one side. You have Trocheck kind of in that bumper spot in front of the net. But the New York Rangers have what is the best net front presence, in my opinion, in the last 3 to 4 years in the NHL and Chris Kreider.
I'm going to do honorable mention to Joe Pavelski, and Tkachuk can kind of throw his hat into that ring.
Tkachuk
maybe Crosby's dropped off a little.
Yeah. But Crosby doesn't really do net front anymore on the power play now. It's kind of weird. But Kreider is just a different animal when it comes to this. Pavelski lethal with his stick, so is Crosby. But Kreider will have goals going off of his knees, off of his chest, his skate. And he's a wizard.
And he can finish. Stick. He's a wizard with the puck in tight. A lot of guys can't do the things that he can do in tight.
And plus,
the goalie on top of him.
He's a big guy. He creates a lot of problems screening goalies. There's a reason why this guy scored 50 goals not too long ago.
And he's still a speed demon too. So you can throw that into
he's not a typical big guy. He's a unicorn when it comes to this.
And that can happen on the power play against us. Sometimes we catch teams with our speed on the power play, zone entries. Thank you, Alexander Barkov. But watch for the Rangers to try to catch us with speed on the power play coming in through the zone.
Namely,
Kreider's a big part of that.
But they as much as the national media was talking at the Panthers prep, they can kill you in so many ways. The Rangers can kill you in every way. You want a deflection? Have that. Shot from the blue line? Have that. Shot from one side? Have that. One-timer from the other? Have that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, but here's the thing.
And again, me and Cody just aren't so down on the Panthers right now. We're trying to tell you, what's around the corner here. We were telling you about Toronto and Boston that we weren't worried. But do you want us to tell you guys as listeners the same thing for every team that we play? Oh, we're playing the Colorado Avalanche. We're not worried about Nathan McKinnon or Cale Makar. Oh, we're playing the New York Rangers. We're not worried about Kreider's net front presence and the wizardry that he is on the power play. We're going to be honest with you here, right? When we're breaking down this series. There's some matchup problems for the Panthers in this series.
And we didn't get into the Breadman, who's had his best season of his career in Artemi Panarin.
See, that's what makes this Ranger team elite. We don't even mention Panarin until much later on. That's the same thing when other fans don't mention Barkov, don't mention Carter Verhaeghe, don't mention the year that Gustav Forsling's having, the year last year that Brandon Montour's having, the year that Bobrovsky's having this year in net as a Vezina front runner. That shows you how deep the Rangers are, Cody, when we don't even get to Panarin off the top.
It's just it's going to be a very, very tough time for the Panthers if they go back to their undisciplined ways. Because in the Boston series, they were extremely, extremely disciplined. The best that they've been under Paul Maurice in any length of time. It's just the Rangers are, boy. If you guys like power plays, I suggest you go watch them next year.
And I told Nick this. I think Bobrovsky will be big for us on the penalty kill against the Rangers in Game 1 and Game 2 in MSG. But come Game 3 and 4, I'm worried about the Rangers power play and at potential times our lack of discipline or the penalties that we're taking. Nick, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kirby. So obviously the story of the series is special teams, right? We know how good the Rangers power play is. So my key to this series, we know how the Panthers like to play. They like to play an aggressive style. They like to play in your face. I phrase this disciplined aggressiveness, right? That Boston series was a nasty series. We need to replicate that here against New York because, and I'm not trying to talk down on any of the New York players, right? But if you do play physical with some of their players, they do have a tendency, to maybe shy away a little bit. Like Kirby, me and you were talking the other day about Artemi Panarin, right? Like, for example, some of his back checking in the Carolina series and the same thing we saw with David Pastrnak and Nikita Kucherov get him frustrated, right? I think that's going to be a key part. Now, again, you have to stay disciplined, right? The main difference in that Carolina series, as Cody said, was special teams. Carolina outscored them 5-on-5. The special teams is really what killed them. I'm not really going to have to say too much because we just covered a lot of it here with Cody, but the Panthers, they can't shy away from their game. Like, we can't take. They're going to have to play their aggressive game. They have to, right?
And do you think they did that to a high standard against Boston? Because I don't believe they did. They need to get back to what they did in the regular season and what they did to Tampa.
Games 2 and 3 was that kind of game.
That's not enough. That's not enough.
But I think they can't shy away from what makes them good because they're afraid of taking the penalty. Like, the Panthers, the way they play, they're going to take penalties. We know this. So disciplined aggressiveness is the thing. Now, when we do go on the penalty kill, which we're going to go on the penalty kill quite a bit, I'm sure, in this series, they're going to have to change some things on the penalty kill, right? Like, for example, in Game 4 against Boston, Luostarinen kind of gets out of position there, a little bit too aggressive to the corner, and it opens up Pastrnak coming down the strong side for a one-timer, and he beats Bobrovsky. That was the first power play goal, the first goal of Game 4, right? I think the Panthers are going to be in need to be a little bit less aggressive, and I've been a big proponent of aggressive penalty kills, Kirby, over the last year and a half, right? But at the same time, and this disciplined aggressiveness also applies not just to how they're going to play, in between the whistles. It's like talking about how they're going to play this penalty kill, right? Like when we were talking with the Ranger fan on the post-game spaces, if we give Adam Fox too much time, he's going to be looking at all the options, right? So
and that's the worst for Bobrovsky because then there's layers and
we're
traffic.
We're going to have to be, smart but aggressive. And it's got to be coordinated. It's got to be good, well executed, obviously. Yeah. But, it is really a measure of, it's going to take a lot of reading the game. These players are going to it's not so much of, you stick to your structure. They're going to have to make quick decisions in this
I think there's going to be a lot of film in this series compared to Boston and Tampa.
Exactly.
Yeah, but they already knew what Tampa had. And we've known Boston to be kind of
it's going to be
low scoring, low scoring.
At the end of the day, I think there's going to be up to the players who can make the quick decision, who could process the game quick enough, okay, this is what I need to do, right?
And make adjustments inside of games. But even to the following game,
exactly.
So the Boston series was too much of a rollover to the next game, There needs to be momentum.
Here's what you can't have happening. You can't be sitting back too much where you're allowing Adam Fox all this time and space, but you can't be too aggressive where there's a guy open around and Fox can, walk around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So overall, the phrase I want everybody to remember, disciplined aggressiveness, not only in how we're going to play in terms of physicality, but how we're going to play on special teams, and particularly the penalty kill.
Yeah. So you kind of tied in Cody's to yours there. I'll go a little off the board. So again, Cody was the special teams, and I agree with Cody. That's the number one, especially when it comes to the Rangers power play. Both of these teams have elite penalty killing. I had the numbers here if I can find them. The Rangers 89.5% in the playoffs, which is second. The Panthers 86.1, which is third. So we talk up our PK a lot. The Rangers PK is right there with us. So again, it's us kind of shutting down that Rangers power play, and then hopefully we're able to pot a goal or two on our power play opportunities. And then, as Nick said, just kind of like controlled aggression. I'm going to go with the final point here before we get into our spotlight players and our predictions for this series. Number 3 is control home ice, control the atmosphere in our own rink. I think this is huge playing the Rangers here. As we know, there's a lot of Rangers fans over social media right now. People are like, Kirby, these ticket prices are ridiculous. There's so many New York people that are Florida residents currently. So with the credit cards and all that, there's going to be a lot of Ranger fans, a lot of Ranger blue in these games 3 and 4 at the bank. Panther fans have to control the atmosphere. And I think this is a good thing for our fan base because they're going to be forced to be loud. They're going to be forced to take over moments at the rink, Nick, because the Ranger fans, they're not going to stop. I just finished watching the Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks game 7. The Knicks were down by 20. I'm going to state that again, by 20. And the roof was almost coming off the joint. So if the Panthers are down at home, which I am going to get into my prediction later, but I'm going to expect there's going to be some rough sailings in games 3 and 4 on home ice, especially if the Rangers get cooking with the power play. If Igor has found his game and he's elite Igor, the crowd can't be quiet. There can't be let's go Ranger chants going. So I think this is a good thing for our fan base because Ranger fans are going to force Panther fans to be loud. And we're really going to see what the atmosphere is like in the building, Nick. Nick, you're going to be at those games. What do you think of that one?
Well, everybody better be loud.
I'm pumped up now.
I am pumped up. We can't have a game 5 repeat where everybody wants to, be all soaking. Like, we got to be ready,
And we got to be loud when things aren't good. Because I think there's going to be, and Nick, you can disagree with me. Maybe Cody's with me. There's going to be multiple times in this series where things are not going our way. Not here, not there.
But if you take a look at Carolina, after they allowed a goal in the Ranger series, you would think they just scored a goal if you turned on the TV right there. They're cheering, they're waving the towels, they're loud, and
and they were loud. They were loud last year. The thing is, the Panthers know how to weather the storm on opposing ice.
Exactly.
When we're at home, we need to do a better job protecting, and that doesn't just come down to the fans. That goes to the players too. We've been a better
kind of like the more hostile the environment, the more calm they are, kind of,
Because I'll get into what I think is going to happen in our prediction in games 1 and 2, because I want to hear your guys' too in a little bit here. It's not as doom and gloom as maybe my voice is sounding, but when we get back for games 3 and 4, you have to control home ice. And that's going to tell me a lot in this series. I said this to Nick. The opening period in game 3 is what I'm looking forward to most.
And there's been
opening period, game 3, when we're on home ice. That's going to tell me a lot.
And we also said this a couple of days ago, Kirby, or maybe was it? Yeah. Panther, you shouldn't really feel great. Like, again, we're the road team. Like, normally be like, great, we split the road 1-1.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't feel necessarily great coming back home tied 1-1.
The way that we played on home ice.
We played at home ice, right?
Especially against Boston recently.
Like, so, and again, I've said this quite a bit, dating back to the regular season when it was still like up in the air of who we're going to play, if we're going to get home ice or, whatever. And I said, I kind of not prefer, but I'm okay with starting on the road because it gives you 2 games to, get yourself in order, get, what in order. And it really puts the pressure on the New York Rangers right away. And again, like we've said, Panthers play well on the road. And I don't know what it is. No clue whether it's the fact that they're
just
in a hotel.
Likes being the villain. That's
like,
just basically
exactly.
It.
But again, what we did in Carolina last year in the conference finals, first of all, that was a complete shock when we won both games. That really deflated Carolina.
Of course, in the 4 overtime game.
And again, I think you also said this, Kirby, when we had our conversation. the first 2 games of this series aren't going to tell you as much as game 3 is.
At me, I'm talking about
yes,
me. Yes,
for you. And I have to agree with that, right? So
we've seen how
we'll
we
see
played
what
on
happens,
Rangers home ice this year. We've done quite well in that
Yeah.
shootout game. I liked how we played. We were shorthanded in that
And
game.
big time.
Oh boy.
I remember that game. Oh
yes,
my gosh.
Brandon Montour and Josh Mahura were our top pairing. Go back and look at that.
Shut down.
Shut down that night.
And I remember Ranger fans saying, "Oh, we're hurt too." Okay, you're missing Truba and Lindgren, I think it was.
Yeah.
Barkov was out that night
We're
too.
missing Barkov, Ekblad, and Forsling, our top center and our top pair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You
We hung
kidding
in there.
me?
So I know what we can do.
And they got lucky that game too. I remember that game.
Okay, gentlemen, let's get into our top 5 spotlight players. Who wants to go first? We're going to start from 5 to 1.
I'll go first.
Okay,
I'll go last.
I'm just gonna say this. This is probably this is so difficult for this series because there are so many guys
And I want to add this. I want to add this point. Sorry to jump in. For your X factor, he better not be like a star superstar. You got to dig a little. There's a lot of star talent out there on the ice, so dig a little bit. I hope on your X factors because I did.
So for the top 5, starting at number 5, I have Matthew Tkachuk. Again, you'll understand it as I go a little bit further down my list, right? But I think Matthew Tkachuk, he has to be good this series, right? I think it's going to be a physical series.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think there's another guy on this team, and I'll get into that later, who's kind of needs to take over what Tkachuk did last year, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But I do think Tkachuk needs to be a lot more relevant in this series than he was last series. He's got to be involved. He's got to be right up there with the top performers. He doesn't need to do what he did last year, but he needs to, again, remember what we did against Tampa, right? We got to bring our performances back there. We got to try to replicate that. Number 4, Vincent Trocheck, the guy I believe is going to be in his line with Panarin and Lafreniere. I think they're going to be matched up with the Alexander Barkov line.
And that is their second line, but they almost have 2 first lines like we do right now.
And I see a lot of Rangers Twitter on my feed, and a lot of them talk about how Kreider and Zibanejad, they don't love the way they're playing all the time, right? Particularly in the regular season and some here in the playoffs.
I think it's a fan base that's hard to please at times.
I think Vincent Trocheck has been absolutely unbelievable. When we're talking about, for example, Cody mentioned the penalty kill. Vincent Trocheck leads the league or leads the playoffs in faceoff percentage. And what was an issue for the Panthers power play in the Boston series? Winning the offensive zone draws. Vincent Trocheck going to play a key role. Plus, he's a damn good player. So that's my number 4. Number 3, I got Igor Shesterkin. I think he's obviously one of the best goaltenders in the game, right? But he's going to need to be better than Swayman was last round, and I think he can absolutely do that.
He needs to be better than Swayman. Wow.
Yeah, okay. Or at least up to par, I'll say. Right? He needs to be up to par with, because Swayman allowed 6 goals in 2 games last year. I don't know.
Swayman's goal save percentage was .950 after the first round. It dipped to .933 against the Panthers. I looked that up.
Igor just needs to continue what he's been doing. Like the final 3 games of that Carolina series, he had an .894 save percentage. But I still think he's going to get a lot of action here against Florida. Igor's going to be right up there. He's going to be one of the Rangers' best players, in my opinion. And
so that's number 3.
But again, there's a lot of firepower here. It's hard to leave certain guys off this list. So that's what. Number 2, based off the way I think this series is going to go, forechecking, kind of a more measured, playoff style game. I think Sam Reinhart really is going to break out here. We're talking about the power play. We're talking about my next guy. We're going to talk about
So you picking Reinhart at number 2? You think our power play is going to go off in this?
Well, I'm going to go a little bit further. 5-on-5.
Well, he's going to have to be a beat. Well, he's going to have to. If you're,
and I'm not just.
Are you shying away from the power play? Because if you're shying away from the power play, you have him at number 2. He better be a machine.
I think the power play is going to be good, but I think his role against Trocheck and Panarin are going to be crucial. And
yeah, but I don't think we're winning a defensive series by Reinhart being the second best.
Well, I think Sam Reinhart, number 1, the way that first line's been going, he's going to start scoring, right? Like you said, in one of those games, he had 13, 14 shot attempts. He's been kind of sneaky good. A lot of, with all the talk about Verhaeghe, Barkov, Kachuk, like Reinhart, I think obviously the 57 goals, he's not at that pace if you were to do the math here in the playoffs, but I think Sam Reinhart combined with the power play, the way the first line's going, and the type of series stylistically it's going to be, I think Sam Reinhart's really going to shine. So that's a little bit of a weird pick at number 2, but just a gut feeling.
I don't feel you're sold on that one, but we'll
It's a gut feeling. It's a gut feeling.
Well,
I'm going to be honest with you.
I'm not selling me on it completely. And your number 1.
Who's one?
Number 1, Alexander Barkov. That, like I said, Kachuk was at number 5. I'm like, I think Alexander Barkov needs to continue what he's done.
So is that concerning having Kachuk that far down now? Wasn't good last round, and Barkov's again got to be our best.
Well, I think Barkov has to be our best. Like, he's the highest paid player on our team. He's been absolutely unbelievable here, and
I don't know. Bob and Kachuk get paid pretty good.
This is a really good Ranger team, and again, that Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line is going to be huge. Like, that's going to be a key matchup here, and that's why I have Trocheck at number 4, Reinhardt at number 2, Barkov at number 1. I really think that those are going to be the stars of this series, those 2 lines, and I picked 3 guys from those 2 lines, and that's just what I'm going with.
Very, very quick with your honorable mention, 1 on each team, just really quick.
Chris Kreider, just strictly for the power play, and obviously the type of series is going to be high intensity, physicality. That's Chris Kreider's game, and Sergei Bobrovsky. Think he's going to have to be around what he did against Boston.
So you have Shesterkin ahead of Bobrovsky.
Correct. Yes.
Interesting. That's interesting. I think Nick's one of the more positive ones
So
on the Panthers in this series.
Kachuk.
It's Kachuk, Trocheck, Igor, Reinhart, and Barkov.
Our lists are going to be completely different. Oh my!
And Nick, should we go to the X Factor with Nick, or wait on that?
Just wait on that. Let's go to the next. Your top 5 Curbs.
Okay, I will go. You want my honorable mention first?
Sure.
I'll go honorable mention first. Anton Lundell, not in my X Factor, but honorable mention. This guy has been playoff performer. I think if the Panthers are going to come away with this series, Anton Lundell is going to have to be in that mix of the top 5 to 8 best players in this series, if you're looking at both sides. So Anton Lundell, my honorable mention. Adam Fox, I can't leave him off any further than this. Doesn't make my top 5, but honorable mention. I know there's some things about him being banged up or different things like that. I'm going to know quite early on if he's a real big factor in this series, and I could look silly on that one if he's like number 1, number 2, number 3 best player. But I do have him on my honorable mentions. Hopefully I'll get some points there. I feel confident with both those guys. I'm going to my list here. I won't go like super long because some of them are the same as Nick's. Number 5, Igor Shesterkin. Does everyone remember in our President's Trophy year when everyone was like, Jonathan Huberdeau, this guy deserves Hart votes. He should be up for the Hart. Igor was up for the Hart that year. Finished 3rd in the Hart Trophy a few years back. This guy is playing great hockey. .923 save percentage. I know his numbers dipped there in the Carolina series, as Nick alluded to, but there's no way that I can leave him off this list. I think there will be a 1 or 2 Igor games in this round. I don't really, in saying that, guys, I don't really think this is going to be a goalie series. I think we're going to see a lot of 4-3, 3-2 games. But I watched moments in that Carolina series where Carolina was peppering Igor with 5-on-5 shots, and he just kept the team in it. And it gave their building a lot of energy. So I'm going to go Igor number 5. Number 4, Chris Kreider. I almost want to have him higher than this because I do feel the Rangers have a potential to beat the Panthers in this round. I thought this is kind of the ceiling for the Panthers, and this is a guy that really scares me. He is probably one of, if not the hottest player right now, coming into round 3 here, coming off that natural hat trick. I know what Nick said. Some of the fans get upset at him. Mika Zibanejad's another one that sometimes isn't going well, that's hot and cold, but this guy concerns me, even though we have an elite penalty kill. Things he can do on the power play are going to be a problem. Now, I think we might be able to handle potentially his line 5-on-5, but on the power play, I'm really concerned. And if he's scoring north of 3-4 goals on the power play in this series, I think he's going to make the top 5 list. Number 3, Sam Reinhart. I believe my number 1 last round, if I'm not mistaken. Looking at my notes, can't find them in front of me here, but I'm dropping Sam Reinhart a little bit down. I don't know what our power play will look like, but this guy, I agree with Nick. This is time for him to step up with some big moments here. It's a little bit under the radar in the Tampa Bay series, but steady, consistent. Maybe one of the better players in the Boston series, but again, there wasn't a lot of stars and superstars stepping up their game to like unmatched, unparalleled levels. So that's why Reinhart kind of fell into the 5. But for him to finish in the top 5, and namely number 3 here, he's going to have a much better round than he did against Boston and be there game in, game out, on the road, on home ice, on the power play, on 5-on-5. Continue to do what he's doing on the penalty kill. He's done good things there. He's been very dangerous on the penalty kill, even in the Boston series. So Sam Reinhart, number 3. Number 2, Vinny Trocheck. His first Eastern Conference final appearance. I'm looking forward to this. Was one of my favorite Florida Panthers at the time when him and Eric Goodbranson were big leaders in the room. I started to see a lot of leadership. I started to see that Panthers organization turn a quarter under Gerard Gallant. He had Trocheck going when he was in Florida, and now he's reaching those levels again and maybe surpassing those levels. I think he was second in points this season for the New York Rangers. So he's playing well, scoring big goals, game-winning goals. Vincent Trocheck, number 2 for me. And number 1, I can't believe I left off my list in the other matchups against Tampa and Boston. Alexander Barkov, our captain. I was kind of playing back and forth with Nick there a little bit, but I think he's going to have to be a key piece in this series, maybe the best piece in this series for the Panthers to walk away with the victory over the New York Rangers, because I don't think it's going to come down just to power play. It's going to come down to 5-on-5, and when the Panthers are rolling, that's when they're at their best, 5-on-5. So
what do we have for the 5 same guys?
So I have Igor Shesterkin at 5, Chris Kreider at 4, Sam Reinhart at 3, Trocheck at 2, and Barkov at 1. I have 3 New York Rangers and 2 Florida Panthers.
So yeah, we got very similar top 5.
Boy, here comes the curveball.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll here. Number 5, I'm going with Adam Fox. Don't know how you guys don't have him in your top 5. I mean, the Panthers... Honorable mention. The Panthers have had trouble with shots from the point these playoffs, and I think Adam Fox is one of the best in the league at it. Plus, top 5 defenseman in this league. Probably second, in my opinion, to Cale Makar. He could do everything. Power play, penalty kill. If any fan thinks the Panthers have a number 1 defenseman, I don't think so. Watch Adam Fox. We don't have anything close to that. Number 4, Alexander Barkov. Once again, he's going to have to be good this series. He's been good all playoffs, and I expect him to continue that. He's going to have to do more of the same. Shut down the team's best player and produce on the offensive side, 5-on-5 and power play. Simple as that. Number 3, Artemi Panarin.
Me and Cody didn't have him, I don't think.
No, you and Nick, yeah.
Me and Nick. Cody.
Just, this guy was an absolute beast this year. Compared to years past where he was more of a playmaker, he elevated his shot this year. He had a career high in goals this year, and he has been outstanding these playoffs. I mean, heck, the deflection in between the legs in Game 3 against Carolina pretty much sink that series. And I think if the Panthers want a shot, they're going to have to silence the Breadman, because he has been the Rangers' best player this season, I believe. It's either him or Adam Fox. And
Nick has different views on Panarin. He'll get into them more in our post game.
That's just how I feel about it. Number 2, Chris Kreider. Just an absolute beast in front of the net. I believe the Panthers are going to have trouble boxing him out due to his size, and we may take a couple penalties because of that. We will see. Number 1, this guy has to be the best player for Florida this series, Matthew Tkachuk, because the Rangers' biggest weakness is their net front defense, and Matthew Tkachuk needs to stop with the perimeter play and get to the front of the net, where he's made his $9.5 million and how he's became one of the best players in the NHL. Honorable mentions: Sam Reinhart and Zibanejad for me, even though
I had a struggle leaving Zibanejad off, but I think 5-on-5 he kind of is a go sometimes.
But X factors for me this series, I'm gonna go quick here.
Yep.
Rangers, actually no, not Lafreniere. Keandre Miller.
Cody's thinking along my wavelength here. Go ahead.
Because what I saw from the Rangers in the Carolina series, outside of Adam Fox, all of their defensemen had trouble with the forecheck. And Florida is a lot hungrier and a lot faster with it than Carolina is. And he was coughing on most of the pucks. He is the most up and down player on the Rangers. I call him light switches. He's one of them. And for Florida, Vladimir Tarasenko.
There we go.
He's got to, I think, Maurice, I think you moved the lines enough. Staple him with Barkov. He needs to be there. I think I need a couple goals from Tarasenko this series, maybe on the second power play unit, but that's just how I feel. And my prediction, I think it's going to be, unfortunately, I'm going to go Rangers in 7.
Rangers in 7, Cody. Oh, I was thinking a lot less than that for Rangers, but Nick, do you want to go next here?
Yeah, so X Factor kind of
series
a
prediction.
boring pick. Anton Lundell, and I'll kind of get more into detail about that. I think the bottom 6 is going to be very key here. Obviously, a lot of talk about the top 6 and Kirby again in our conversations. We said maybe it's not those top 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. It's more of those 9, 10, 11, 12th guys, like they're going to make the difference in this series. We're going to see the separation, right? So
we'll grade you on a curve on that one because Anton Lundell's playing a lot better, so he's going to have to really perform.
The other reason I'm picking Anton Lundell is because on the other side I have Alex Wenberg for New York. That third line has been really good for the Rangers, and like I just said, the bottom 6, that's kind of where we're going to see a little bit more of separation. And those two are going how those two play, right? The third line centers in this series, depending on what the Maurice does with Lundell or Bennett, but the third line centers in this series are going to really, in my opinion, kind of decide, who pulls away a little bit more. And do you want me to give my
series prediction?
Or I'm going to go, and I was leaning, it was like 51% to 49%. I'm going to go Panthers in 7. Obviously could go, it's like a coin flip at this point, right? So, but in my opinion, Panthers in 7, I really think that we're a really good team, 5-on-5, I think we're going to have an advantage. And I do envision us struggling a little bit on the special teams, but I think we'll get better as the series goes along.
Thank you, Nick. On yours, I'll go over mine quickly here. My X factors, I'll give my Rangers one first. You guys aren't a big fan of him in our community. Jacob Trouba, 10 games played, 4 points, +2. Had that shorthanded goal, plays over 20 minutes a night, 47 block shots, 37 hits. Hey, if he's washed and he's not playing well, I'm going to be looking at him. Aaron Ekblad makes $7.5 million a year. Jacob Trouba makes $8 million a year, almost on identical contracts. I think Trouba's got 2 years left on his deal. This will be a big series if he can show his physicality and be good in front of the net, like Cody said, and win some of those battles against Matthew Tkachuk and other Panther players. And I'm going to use Kevin Stenlund. I said I was going to use saving him for the conference final. Well, here it is. Kevin Stenlund, this is your moment. I thought it was going to be against the Carolina Hurricanes in this round. I picked in the summer Carolina to beat the Panthers in the conference final way back in the summer. I'm very conflicted with my prediction here, gentlemen. I can see this series easily going to the Rangers in 5 games. But I watched what the Pacers did in MSG today in Game 7. A team of mine that I've followed for a long time in the Pacers, how they silence that MSG crowd. If it does go to a Game 7, I have confidence in the Panthers that they can win in 7. But I'm not feeling super confident going into this round. If it ends early, it could end in the Rangers in a very short series in 5. But I will go with Florida at 7. Didn't know that was going to be Nick's pick. We talked about this off the air. We had some heated debates on it, but it seems like me and Nick are going the same way on this one. So Panthers in 7, and Cody, you have the Rangers in 7. Is that correct?
Yep, I'll go more in depth into my decision for post-game, for the preview spaces. If anyone wants to ask me that, I'll be happy to give you my answer.
Yep, that'll be Monday night. Likely around 8 p.m. Eastern time. We will tweet it out Monday morning, so whenever you're listening to this. And if you missed that, you have the opportunity to listen back to it on the replay. Hopefully we have a lot of callers in there with all their questions and everything like that. Before we go, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Cats and Rats Podcast, and then follow myself, Cody, and Nick on Twitter X. It'll be in the ad description, so you can drop us all a follow there. And on the way out, we have a couple days here to still kind of collect our thoughts and our feelings, our predictions and everything like that. We would love to hear from everyone else on your predictions for this series and whatnot, and kind of your spotlight players as well. But as we say, on the way out, let's go Cats.